Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to EECA's Market Update for June. I'm Stacey Fellows and I'd like to introduce our team today. So we'll do that next. Firstly, Dr. Marcos will take us through a general update for us all. He's our Chief Executive for those new to EECA updates. And then we'll go on to Arnard, who's going to take us through his program. I'm going to go left to right. Brian's next, actually. Then Anand, then Oliver, part of the reader program, and then myself, and then we'll go on to question and answers at the end. We're going to record this session just so you know, and if you've got a question along the way for the presenter, please just put it in the chat, or we will take those questions at the end and endeavour to get through them. So over to Marcos.
Okay. I'm going to just zoom in a bit since it's reset. But thank you, Stacey. Okay. Tihe Moriora e rau rangitirama tenakoto tenatato katoa. Welcome, everybody, and good morning. I'm going to be talking very briefly about EECA's context. I'll talk about the budget cuts, what they mean for us. And then mostly I'll be talking about what we are doing, how we're changing, and what we are delivering. Next, please. So I think this will be very familiar for folks who know EECA well, but some of you might be joining for the first time. It's been a little while since we've done a market update. A lot has happened in the last 6-7 months for us. So for those who might be a little bit less familiar, we are the lead agency and expert voice on energy use for the New Zealand government. So when you think about the different players, you've got MB, who look after the strategic policy. You have the Electricity Authority and ComCom, who do the market regulations and rules. And then EECA, we basically help from the end user's perspective. So we support MB with technical advice, with the delivery of programs, but we really are here from the demand side of the equation. So we are here to help energy users. And we do that through a number of different ways. We support individual energy users through programs, whether it's our residential program to keep people warm and dry with insulation, or it's our business energy efficiency programs with feasibility studies and audits, or it's on how we might promote clean fuels and accelerate renewables through low emission transport fund, through energy transition accelerators and pathways. But we are also support users in the market with information and insights. So part of what we do at EECA and part of what we pride ourselves in is being an authority on quality energy data and being able to share that with the market so people can make the best informed choices for themselves. And then finally, we are the product regulator for energy use appliances. So we look after the performance standards of appliances for the country. Next slide. So as reported in the media, and likely not a surprise for those following, EECA, like a lot of the other government agencies in the last couple of years, we've been facing a sinking lid or fiscally constrained, whatever words you want to use. We've had a budget cut to our baseline. Now that has direct impacts on the type of scope and quantum of support that we can offer, but it doesn't fundamentally change our mission. Our mission is to help New Zealand, is to mobilize New Zealanders to be world leaders in clean and clever energy use. And we are huge believers in the role that energy can play to help us unlock productivity, savings, and reducing emissions for the country. And that hasn't changed. Energy efficiency still has a very important role and we are here to promote, support, and encourage it. So we are in a context of fiscal restraint, as you would have seen through the budget, but we are also in a context of changing market needs. So there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of discussion around the energy system. Feels like a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts, talking about strategies, talking about tactics, what we might do. For a lot of the businesses and energy users that we support, the reality for them is particularly challenging. And so we as an agency need to evolve and change and adapt our offerings to make sure they are still as relevant as they can be for those users. So we are as helpful as we can be. So for many of our programs, they will continue, they will grow. For other programs, they are reaching a natural point of conclusion. They've done their job, they've done a great job, and we're going to celebrate them, but that's going to, some of them may get wrapped up, and we will be starting new initiatives next financial year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But before I do, next slide. I'll just also talk a little bit about not just how our activities are changing, but how the main three levers are changing for us. And these are really, for us, big changes. And I hope what that will do is just drive better impact that supports you and supports energy users and customers and the whole market. So when we look at a problem, we think about how might we use these three levers to help solve it. So one of the key levers for us is the product regulations. This is the set of standards and regulations that look at performance. It's not fit for purpose. It's been clear that it's not fit for purpose for a while. We developed joint standards with Australia. When the Australian and New Zealand governments agree on a new standard, Australia goes on and implements it. But we have a system here that introduces years of delay. And so we have been lapped sometimes in that standard development. And sometimes the transaction cost of a new standard coming in place is 7 years. So that's unacceptable. It's resulted in inefficient appliances coming into the country and overall poor performance of our whole kind of energy use system. But that is changing. Cabinet and the government have agreed to update our enabling legislation, to update our system, our regulatory system, so that we can put in place a rules-based system, and that will just essentially completely cut that transaction cost. So we will be able to update standards in a timely way, but more or as importantly, we will also be able to look at things like connectivity, interoperability, smartness, the ability for appliances to respond to a demand response signal. So that is all going to fall under the remit of the regulatory system for us. And we will be very quickly trying to get ahead of EV chargers, inverters, batteries, and we'll be looking at other large energy use cases, data centers, et cetera, to make sure that we've got appropriate industry supporting but appropriate standards that enable the most value of those energy assets to be used. And really what I'm talking about is the ability to respond to signals and for those smart appliances to be able to feed in back into the system. So demand flexibility, distributed flexibility, and energy efficiency. This is a sea change for us, and that's coming up this year. The second thing is around our information and education. We've always seen ourselves as the authority on providing quality advice to energy users as well as quality data. And I want the organization, and we are going to double down in this area. We are going to go very as big as we can on trying to help users from households to businesses have the best information at their fingertips so they can make the best choices for themselves. I think this is a very clear role for us. And I think the benefits of saving energy are not energy is not that well known. How to save energy is actually not obvious. Eating well and eating an apple might be obviously a healthy thing to do, but energy is invisible and energy efficiency is invisible. People don't use energy, they use services like hot water, hot showers, cooking food. And so there is a large role for government and for EECA to play in supporting quality advice to the market. And that applies to medium, large, small businesses. Organizations are busy delivering on their bottom line. They're focused on production. There's a whole bunch of competing priorities and pressures. They may not actually appreciate how much they can save through low-hanging fruit energy efficiency, or what the opportunity is for transitioning to clean fuels and how that might support them in the long run, around affordability and security of supply. So we are going to lean heavily into that space. And then the third lever, our targeted investment support, that is also going to go through quite a lot of change. You may have seen that we have partnered with the Center for Sustainable Finance. We are looking at working with the financial sector more broadly on how might we leverage the private capital that's out there and bring that in to be deployed more widely for energy efficiency. So what can EECA do to help businesses use their existing debt servicing or other financial channels to be able to fund what they need in terms of kit or upgrades? And so what I'm hoping that will do is that will, rather than us working within a small pot of grants, using our existing funding to leverage a much larger pool of support. And so I think if we do this well, it'll actually accelerate the amount of financial support that's out in the market. And it won't be just solely from EECA, it'll be with the broader financial sector. So we put out a green paper on this shift. We've announced a partnership with the Center for Sustainable Finance, and we are already piloting a energy savings loan type of arrangement so we can test it out. So you'll see a lot more innovation in the financial modeling and financial tools that EECA is going to be using. Next slide, please. So those were the three levers. The context is the energy market is changing. The challenges of users are changing, and EECA is going to change as well. How we are changing, I've gone through the three levers: the regulation, information, and targeted support. And here's a high level now of our activities and how are our activities changing. So the high level here, as you can imagine, when you're going through a fiscally restrained period of budget cuts, it's kind of like in businesses, it's a merger and acquisition mode rather than growth mode. We are focusing on pooling together our resources so that we can reach out for smaller number of projects, maybe larger scale, definitely high impact initiatives. So we have got, this is quite high level and there will be a lot more to come. It's grouped under our three strategic focus areas: energy efficiency first, empowering energy users, and accelerating renewables. Those are the three stars for us. And under energy efficiency first, we've got our standards and regulation work. Warmer Kiwi Homes, the insulation program is continuing. And you might see in the market now, both at the consumer level and at the business level, we are putting out a lot of material, and we are putting EECA staff on the ground to help businesses through winter from an affordability perspective. What can we do right now, low-hanging fruit, to help businesses and homes save energy this winter? For the Empower Energy column, you'll see the Distributed Flexibility Program. I'm a big believer in the opportunity that demand flex can help for our grid, both from a resilience and wider affordability of the system, the downward pressure on prices it can play if done well. So I want to lean into distributed flexibility. And we've gotten responsibility to administer two funds which are very strongly aligned with EECA's mission, and that's our Community Support and Education Fund and the Supporting Energy Education in Communities Fund. And so those are continuing under EECA. Under Accelerate Renewables, we really got the low emission heavy vehicle fund is our remaining kind of transport subsidy program, and that's just been recently refreshed. There was an announcement last week at the Hydrogen conference, H2O, where Minister Watts talked about the refreshed fund. So go to our website to learn more about that. I think the large change is this technology and fuel enabler. So I won't go into all the details now. We'll properly unpack it at the next market update. But the high level concept is we are not intending to run a whole bunch of discretionary small funds anymore. What we will do is have a platform, technology and fuel enabler platform, and we will identify opportunities that are national opportunities from an energy affordability, resilience, and low emissions perspective. And then we will work with the market to properly shape up what the intervention might look like. So the three that we are looking at for this coming financial year will be in biomass, high temperature heat pumps, and solar. So there'll be more details of that coming. So the main key message from the shift is going from reactive, where we were looking at funds, to much more proactive, market-led, and working with stakeholders on developing those interventions. I think there's two last points that I want to just comment on before I close. One, this is a focus on the new initiatives or existing, but we are still carrying on with our programs until they finish up, and we are fully committed to those programs. So when we think about the Regional Energy Transition Accelerator, we are fully committed to seeing that through, along with the sector decarbonization pathways. So those existing programs will run until the end of the financial year or until their jobs are done, and then they'll come to a natural end. And the other thing to mention is the objectives here and how we've structured the focus areas, helping people save energy, save money, reduce emissions. That will allow us to draw on those, those objectives for these programs. But not every program that we are going to run is going to be 100% all three of those objectives. It just won't be possible. So I guess what I'm saying is that some of these initiatives might focus more strongly on efficiency and saving money, like our winter support program that we're looking at right now, while others might be much more focused on clean fuels and reducing emissions. And low emission heavy vehicle fund is an example there. I still think EECA has a key role to play in demonstrating innovative, energy efficient, and low emission technologies. But how we do that is going to be changing away from funds towards more of a platform type of initiative that we'll be rolling out. Okay, I know there was a lot going on. I hope that provided a useful insight into what we are, how we are responding to the context and what we are doing to change. And so now next slide, please. Yeah, that's good. That's what I expected. And so stay tuned for more information, and I will pass it on to our next speaker, who is Brian.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for your time this morning. I just want to take you through a few elements of EECA's distributed flexibility program that Marcos has mentioned. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a little bit of background context, and I know we have a very educated and well-informed audience here, but just for those who may be new to the subject, distributed flexibility is a massive opportunity for New Zealand. Electricity prices are increasing. Anybody who has a power bill would have received an increase on the 1st of May this year, and there are subsequent increases planned for the next 2 years. But I guess the bottom line is that demand is expected to increase by 26% by 2035 in New Zealand, and by around 65% by 2050. So I guess the bottom line here is that demand is increasing. New Zealand's population is increasing as we as a country and an economy decarbonise through things like transport and industrial process heat. The hole is only ever getting deeper. And as you can see on the image on the right-hand side, our electricity system at present is built to the peak, and that peak will only get larger and larger and larger if we fail to act and fail to do anything to try and help optimize the existing electricity system and asset base that we have available now. Distributed flexibility, which I'll come on to in a moment, reduces costs on both sides of the meter. So what it does, in a very simple statement, is it puts the consumer and their technologies in the centre of the demand conversation, and enables them to reduce their energy bills and to reduce their reliance on the grid, which will then enable electrification and renewable energy generation to be increased. Ultimately, it will defer or reduce significant expensive infrastructure upgrades on the grid, because if we can use the existing system we have more efficiently and optimise its use, ultimately that will ensure that New Zealanders aren't facing never-ending increasing electricity bills, but we can start optimising what we have available at our fingertips right now. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of terminology here. Those of us who are quite close to this, just tend to think it. But demand and distributed flexibility are fundamentally two sides of the same coin. Demand flexibility, as where technology is able to have a two-way communication with the grid and react to signals from the grid, be they price signals or demand signals or whatever they may else be. But ultimately, demand flexibility is about a two-way conversation between smart technology and the supply side of the market. I do want to mention the fantastic work that our colleagues in the Electricity Authority and the Commerce Commission are doing as they start to work to set up the market settings that are required for demand flexibility services to be actively engaged with and to be monetized going forward. So that work is underway right now, and it's fantastic to see our fellow regulators really making the market itself ready for demand flexibility as services start to emerge and as consumers start to engage. But I will say that the functionality of demand flexibility must be underpinned by interoperable smart, connected smart devices. And, it's a very simple statement to say, but ultimately all the smart devices in the world won't matter a jot if we don't have a system for them to run on, and vice versa. So very, very important that the shift New Zealand needs to make towards a distributed flexibility system are on both sides of the meter, both in terms of the demand technologies and the supply system at the same time. When we talk about distributed energy resources, we're fundamentally talking about localized generation of electricity, be that by solar and storage by way of batteries, that enable the consumer, wherever they might be, to self-consume to the greatest degree possible and to reduce their reliance on the grid. But distributed energy resources also enable grid optimization to occur. And I'll come on in a couple of minutes to just some of the things that we are doing to ensure that DER and grid optimization are part and parcel of what we're doing in terms of the consumer and the supply side of the market. Next slide, please. So just in terms of the architecture and how this all might work, and the importance of standardization. And I will circle back to this and apologize up front if I repeat myself, but ultimately what New Zealand needs to enable demand or distributed flexibility as a service to function out there for the betterment of all participants in the market is standardization. Demand flexibility needs to be based on open communication protocols or standards that are developed internationally and are suitable for the technology we bring into New Zealand. They matter for flexibility because of seamless integration. So devices in homes or in businesses, demand flexibility platforms and networks need to be able to talk to each other using the same language. Without custom code or proprietary solutions that ultimately lock a consumer or indeed a supplier into a single line of communication. So open communication and speaking the same language is absolutely critical for demand flexibility to be scalable across New Zealand. Lowering cost is another big element of ensuring that we use standardization, and standardization reduces the integration complexity for all actors, be they aggregators, be they retailers, or be they electricity suppliers. Scalability is another big element of why standardization is important. For demand flexibility to be truly scalable, it needs to go far, wide, and is across many New Zealand ICPs as absolutely possible in homes and businesses. However, we can't forget the consumer in this conversation, and ultimately consumer choice is mission critical. We need consumers to be able to plug and play with their devices, no matter who they're doing business with. And that's where one language is so important. Ultimately, consumers will quickly disengage if they don't have plug and play solutions that enable them to set and forget and to simply notice when their electricity bill reduces. And finally, trust and transparency is the other big thing when it comes to standardization. We need to ensure we develop a future-proofed, vendor-agnostic flexibility market that will stand the test of time. Consumers need to see value in saying yes to flex. Aggregators or retailers need to ensure that they can provide these services and do so successfully over time as an integral part of their business model. And electricity supply companies need to be able to see and realize, tangible reductions in their capital investment from using demand flexibility to ensure that we don't overinvest in our grid, which will ultimately drive the price of electricity up for all New Zealanders. So standardization is probably EECA's North Star in the entire demand flexibility universe, and you'll hear us talking about it many times as we try and drive the point home that this is a fundamental requirement to make things happen at scale going forward. Next slide, please. So EECA have been working in this area since 2022, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to dial into the Flex Talk webinar a little bit earlier on this morning. And ultimately what we did was created a platform to provide proof of concept that existing technologies in consumers' homes can be communicated with and controlled externally. Now, we have focused on retrofitting connectivity to existing technologies under our existing programs because we know that this will be the quickest way that consumers can start participating in demand flexibility as a service. Our fantastic regulatory team will ultimately bring in technologies that is, as Marcos has explained earlier on, is already demand flexible ready, and they'll come that way out of the box. But that won't happen until manufacturers start improving and increasing the connectivity requirements of the technology they're bringing into New Zealand. So what we see is the immediate here and now opportunity to get demand flex or distributed flexibility up and running our existing technologies and existing consumers' homes. And what we've done under Flex Talk is prove that that is possible and able to be done at affordable cost to ensure that we get as big a uptake as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just the last point I want to make before handing over to my colleagues, and that is based on the learnings we have obtained during our Flex Talk proof of concept trials. We are now going to scale demand or distributed flexibility up across New Zealand to the greatest degree we possibly can. We're looking at 5 or 6 pilots in New Zealand's major centres, targeting 500 household cohorts, including technologies such as batteries for homes of solar, V2G EV chargers, community-level batteries, and smart appliances, to try and ensure that as many technologies as possible can be connected to the existing platforms that we have created, to prove that this isn't just doable in small cohorts of 100 homes, but can literally be done in thousands of homes. What we are looking to do under the scaled pilots is create a level of visibility and a bow wave of momentum that consumers can see, can engage with, can understand, and hopefully to decide that they want to be part of it. The second side of the scaled pilots, of course, though, is the supply side of the system. So this isn't just about consumers. We also need to provide evidence to electricity suppliers that demand flexibility solutions can be used to defer, delay, or avoid really expensive network upgrades that ultimately get paid for by all of us as part of our electricity bills. But they need confidence. The solution we have in place today has been working well for New Zealand for the last 100 years. Demand flexibility takes that solution, turns it on its head, takes it from a one-way communication to a two-way communication, and enables real-time changes in demand profiles to occur. So electricity supply companies need to be conservative and need to have evidence to make smart business decisions that help reduce their costs and help us all keep the downward pressure on electricity prices. And demand flexibility solutions under the scale pilots will be used to provide that evidence. Obviously, a reduction in demand does help improve New Zealand's security supply. And, as we look forward to, more and more renewable electricity generation coming online, I guess my observation would be that, even if they started tomorrow and put a spade in the ground tomorrow, it'll be a minimum of 5 years before those plants are online and electrons start flowing into wires. So we've got a 5-year window to really take demand flexibility as a solution and make it real for New Zealand to enable us to ensure that what we are investing in is smart, helps reduce our costs, and keeps downward pressure on prices for all consumers. So in closing, I would just like to sort of say that what EECA does is provide evidence to consumers that demand flex can significantly reduce their energy costs. And they should be looking towards their electricity suppliers, their retailers, or the demand flexibility service providers who offer these services. And that's a big part of what EECA are doing. It's not just about the evidence, it's about the visibility, it's about the story, and it's about the reason why consumers should say yes to flex. And we are very, very focused, both now and in our years, on ensuring that can occur. Thank you.
Good morning, all. My name's Anand Krishnan. I'm a lead data analyst here at EECA. I'm going to talk about a couple of the data tools that we've got on our website. We have a range of data tools on our website that can be used for insights and analysis. I'm going to touch on 2 of them, the energy end use database and the regional heat demand database. I just want to note that it's really important to note that industry itself has been critical to the development of these tools. And it wouldn't be possible without industry contributing, in particular contributing in terms of data directly from the coalface, which we have synthesized into these tools and improved them. So I'll touch on the energy end use database first of all. Next slide, please, Mason. So this is a database that it provides foundational data on fuel consumption across the New Zealand economy. It shows data at a national level, but the breakdowns are incredibly granular. So we break the data down by fuel type, sector, and also end use and technology. So end use, lighting, heating, technology, resistance heaters, boilers, etc. So in that regard, the database is a very unique and authoritative item that EECA puts out there. Given that the data can be broken down to such a granular level. It's updated annually. We've currently got 7 years of data in there right now. And it's used across government, private sector, academia, and it's even used in Australia too for data mining. Used by data analysts or data analysts, energy data analysts, or general data analysts who are interested in energy data. And it's typically used for modeling exercises, policy analysis, and business decision making. What's the next slide there, Mason? Right, so we've touched on this. It's used in the public sector, private sector, academia, and even in Australia. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen and give the webinar a small demo of this tool. So this is the energy end-use database page. It's on our website, accessible to everyone. And here we have the data here. It will show you energy use in terajoules, and it will give you some key kind of trends and stats on the front page. We have a tree map here that can be explored. Everything's interactive. You can dive in and get deeper views of items. So we've got a number of exploration tabs here. If we go to the Explore one, what we've got here is a Sankey diagram that can be manipulated from the from and to buttons. So we can see a Sankey in terms of sector grouping, industry, commercial, residential, transport, and we can drop it down to a lower level sector. So you've got a range of different sectors. So the data exists within two levels, a group level and then a disaggregated level. And using this type of structure, you can do various different mining exercises. We've also got the data in a time series where you can look at things in terms of an area chart or a line chart. And you've also got drop downs on the side, which give you complete access to manipulate as much as you need. The data is available in a table here. And for those who don't like to look at visuals, would rather just jump straight into the data set itself, we have the data available here. The whole data set available here, just straight for downloading. So that's the energy end-use database. I'll go back to the slides. So the second data set that I'd like to demonstrate here is the regional heat demand database. Heat demand, this graph here shows that heat demand makes up 35% of our total energy consumption. This is a snapshot from 2023 data. So there's a need to understand heat demand a lot more deeper. And what we have done is collected data from across the country from large and medium heat plant sites, and we present that in our regional heat demand database. Next slide, please, Mason. So this is foundational data again, and it's used across a number of different programs that we run here, in particular the RETA program, which I think Oliver will talk about a bit further on in this webinar. And this database tells us it's focused on fossil fuel using heat plant sites, and it gives us very powerful breakdowns of what types of fuels are being used, boiler count numbers, consumption and capacity data. So I'll just jump in and do a quick demo of this now. This is our regional heat demand database. It'll just load up in a second, and everything's interactive. So we have a home page that gives us key stats that people might be interested in. What's the total fuel demand? What's capacity? Site count 713. So we have data from 713 sites across the country. And we have the same kind of structure here. We've got an explore page and a map page. So in the Explore page, you'll see a Sankey similar to the Energy End Use database, where you can manipulate categories and get different views to come up. And of course, all the data is available in file as well for download. We have a map page here. You can see everything's interactive. It's a heat map page, so color-coded. So you can hover over certain regions and values will jump out at you. You can change the metric that you're looking at. So you can look at it in terms of boilers, where Auckland has more boilers than everyone else. And you can look at it in terms of demand, where you get a slightly different picture again. That is the regional heat demand database. Let's go back to the slides, please, Mason. Next slide, please. So those are two of our key tools, and they are authority pieces that we put out there. We're always looking to improve them. In terms of the energy end use database, we think it'll be really valuable if we could have a regional split built into it. That's quite tricky to do, and we're thinking of methods and ways as to how we can give effect to that. For the regional heat demand database, the data was collected across 2021 to 2023, and we have done reconciliation of that data recently before this particular publication came out last year. So it's as up to date as possible to the best of our knowledge now, but there is a need to keep it updated as New Zealand changes. So we're looking at ways as to how we can do that effectively. We would really appreciate industry to give us feedback on these tools. Please get in touch with me or get in touch with EECA if you have any thoughts or ideas about using these tools. Thank you. Next speaker.
Ollie, you're muted.
Should we try this microphone instead? Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, I did such a good intro. Now I've got to do it again. So kia ora, I'm Ollie. I'm going to give you a whirlwind update on RETA, and I will go super quick because we're running out of time, but all the stuff is available on our website, so do go there to find out more. So next slide, please, mysterious slide, moving man. So just in case RETA is new for you, a really quick overview of what it is. And the clue is in the title, Regional Energy Transition Accelerator. And we look at what is required for industrial process heat to switch to renewable fuels in a regional context. So it focuses on the larger energy users, roughly using a cutoff of installed fossil fuel heat capacity of 500 kilowatt. And it includes all of the sites that Anand mentioned in the regional heat demand database, as well as other sites that we have information for. And it uses a bottom-up methodology for each of the sites, and we examine the economics of energy efficiency and fuel switching projects for every site to get an idea of what alternative fuels may be required and when. And the program is all about information sharing and regional coordination to provide those regional stakeholders with specific information for their options. Next slide, please. So the RETA program is nearing completion, and for the avoidance of doubt, because it has been discussed in various forums previously, there are no plans for future iterations of the RETA program. A lot of the work that was planned for the next phases will be incorporated into other EECA priorities going forward. So most recently, we have published the Manawatu Whanganui report, and I'll give a really quick highlight of those insights next. Then in the coming months, we'll be publishing Auckland, Wellington, and New Zealand overall reports. They'll be published. And final thing will be we're working on updating and expanding our online mapping and dashboard tool, so that will include even more information and have other stuff that can be downloadable. All right, skip forward a couple of slides, please. So we'll talk about some Manawatu insights. So Manawatu Whanganui, it's a geographically very large region. Process heat sites are spread throughout it. The meat and dairy sectors are particularly important industries throughout the region, and both those industries require lots of heat for their processes. So unsurprisingly, they are the main sectors we found for process heat use. So there were 42 sites included in total, over 300 megawatt of installed fossil fuel capacity and 2.6 PJs of fossil fuel use, predominantly from piped fossil gas. So next slide, please. So what the program has found from the bottom-up analysis of all of the potential projects for those 42 sites is, by about around 2037, the economical pathway would have reduced the region's fossil fuel use by 93%. So the economical pathway would see 17 large heat pump projects go ahead, requiring electricity demand of 26 gigawatt hours per annum. And it would also see 25 big biomass projects go ahead, which would require around about 250,000 tonnes of biomass to fuel those boilers. So needless to say, all of those projects require ongoing energy requirements and present opportunities for employment in the region to deliver and maintain those energy projects. As shown by the graph there, our economic analysis is suggesting that biomass is the preferred fuel based on economics alone, primarily due to its lower kind of ongoing costs of delivering energy. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give a really quick sneak peek into what some of the all of New Zealand picture is looking like, which will be delivered in the coming months. Next slide, please, Mason. So what we've found is some relatively big numbers for what the requirements are for process heat for fossil fuel. So overall, there'll be over 800 sites included through the RETA program, with over 6 gigawatts of installed fossil fuel capacity. Across all of New Zealand, these sites consume the lion's share of New Zealand's coal and gas use for stationary energy. So when you exclude the energy required for electricity generation and as a feedstock in products, the remaining coal and gas use is predominantly consumed by these relatively small number of sites. Next slide, please. So, of course, demonstrating the path that we are well trodden by now, is that we don't just want to replace 1 megawatt or 1 gigajoule of fossil fuel with a renewable fuel. We of course consider energy efficiency and heat pump projects as kind of core to what sites can do to reduce their fossil fuel consumption before they consider a fuel switch. So the previous slide showed us 6 gigawatts of installed capacity, but if we are implementing demand reduction or energy efficiency and heat pump projects first, then we can reduce that requirement by 29% or 1.8 gigawatt. And this has fantastic flow and benefits. It equivalently reduces the spend for process heat users. So for example, they might now require a 7 megawatt boiler instead of a 10 megawatt boiler, as well as reducing kind of upstream spend required to install those projects. Often these energy efficiency and heat pump projects have fantastic payback periods, so worth looking at, especially considering our current financial environment that we're in, and particularly in the face of kind of rising fossil fuel pricing, predominantly piped gas. So, those 600 energy efficiency projects that save 14 PJ per annum of fossil fuels, if the fuel cost was around $20 per gigajoule, then there is $280 million per year in savings that could be achieved from these organisations, and that money could be used elsewhere. Next slide, please. Just highlighting one of the key insights out of the REIT program before I pass on, and this is about the role of biomass for New Zealand's future energy system, and specifically around what we're seeing for the potential future demand and potential future supply for biomass. And what we found is that demand can be met from the existing extent of commercial plantation forestry across New Zealand, from utilising residues, aka slash, and some low-grade industrial logs that wouldn't materially disrupt existing markets. So the additional demand is around about 30,000 TJs or 30 PJs per year, or 4 million green tonnes of biomass for industrial process heat. So, to put that scale into context, it would require the equivalent energy output of another 9 or 10 facilities the size of Nature's Flame, which is New Zealand's largest bioenergy provider currently. So also I should note here that each region within New Zealand has a vastly different version of this supply-demand graph. So for example, forest-rich regions like Tairāwhiti, Hawke's Bay, Northland, Marlborough and Tasman have a much more potential supply than demand, whereas process heat heavy regions like Canterbury and Auckland have more demand than supply. So how do we get the right stuff in the right areas is one of the key. Next slide, please. My last ones. So breaking down those, that 4 million tonnes of demand, as I mentioned, it's a bottom-up approach that we use in this program, and so that 4 million tonnes comes from about 400 biomass projects across New Zealand. And they've got a combined installed capacity of 2.5 gigawatts. So of those 400 projects, there has been 80 of them that have been confirmed. So either they've recently been completed or have been committed to in the near future, which means there's still 320 potential projects out there for biomass for process heat. So, and also just to put that 2.5 gigawatt of installed capacity into context, if that was to be electrified, it would consume the annual electricity generated by 14 of the Harapaki wind farms that's been recently committed, or 74 Lauriston-sized solar farms, another recent kind of generation project in New Zealand. So biomass will have a part to play in New Zealand's kind of energy system, and all these insights and more will come out when we are presenting the final New Zealand analyses. And apologies, as I promised I'd go fast, but I went over time. I'll pass over to Stacey now.
Kia ora. Great work, team. So if you've got questions for the presenters so far, just pop them in the chat, just in terms of managing the time we've got left. And what we want to focus on now is, we've talked about the great tools EECA has and the work that's happening to really help our strategy and direction as a country, but we want to talk about the here and now, so our business outreach and how we can focus on energy savings and affordability right now and help set ourselves up for the future. So next slide. So really, we look across our energy users and we put them in the different categories. So we've got our large energy users, we've got our medium energy users, and we've got our small to mediums. So we've got different targeting around each one. And so we're just going to take you through that quickly today. And yes, do feel free to put information in the chat so you can have your questions answered, because we'll probably run out of time. So I'm just going to quickly go through for large energy users what we're doing. So EECA's leveraging what we have already, so our established relationships with New Zealand's top 100 energy users. This is to help them pursue and identify how they can have more smart technologies, how they can look at renewable options that are tailored for them. This is through in-person, so they have a one-to-one relationship. We also are offering feasibility support. We're currently promoting energy audits to businesses. So we've got 14 in play this year, but we've got another 10 to 12 to be signed out by the end of our financial year, which ends June. So if you've got more, do let us know, but that's the time frame you've got to work towards. So feasibility study support, that's to help your organisation build stronger business cases. It's got really rigorous assessments, investigation, analysis. So what do we offer? It's 50% funding and up to 50K for businesses with that energy spend on stationary energy, so more than 1.5 million a year. The other tool is energy audits. So how and where to use your energy in your process and how you find cost-effective opportunities to reduce energy. And we fund that up to 40% of the cost of the audit and about 20K for businesses that spend, again, that. So 3 million, even we can look down to 1.5 million spend. So come to us if you are in that realm. And of course, you'll probably have a regional manager in place. We're going to have some links at the end of the pack you can go to. For medium energy users, so this is mainly where we have our relationships with a one-to-many. So we have active relationships with 38 different industry associations, and that represents, we think, about 40,000 members. So we've got quite a good reach there with really one person. So we're piloting, aiming to pilot with one sector, bespoke energy efficiency, digital pathways. So how we can leverage information we've already got through our sector and really create specific information tools, make it really palatable for the sector, and things like the calculators, the technology scans, the case studies, saving pathways, etc. And for our SMEs, we're finalising our targeted energy efficiency resources to be delivered through GenLess. So really keep an eye out on that. So this is new energy management advice to help small to medium businesses so they can understand, monitor the energy use and improve through energy efficiency, those easy and low-hanging fruit options. How to look at smart investments around new tech, and we're really looking to get that out next week. So do keep an eye out for it, and we'll be able to send you a link in the follow-up email. So as a wrap-up, we're really wanting to help businesses understand their energy use so they can take that action to improve energy efficiency, to save, that all-essential money to keep us, productive and transition to more efficient technologies that can help us all. So that's our wrap up. If you did have questions, hopefully the team have been able to answer them. Otherwise, we'll take a look after because we do want to wrap up on time. We'll just have a little peep in the chat with my colleague. How are we going? We've done a pretty good job, I think, of answering as we go along. We've got no unanswered questions. Oh, no, we're all answered. So we're pretty happy with that. Hopefully, if you do have questions later, then if we go to the next slide, we should have some links. There you go. You can find us, if you like, on the sector program link, businesses at EECA. We're in LinkedIn, many ways, and keep an eye out for our newsletters. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you to all the presenters, and have a great day out there and get in touch with your questions. Ka kite.